one of my uh, assistant coaches is having a Super Bowl party, and he just bought a new TV like today for it. So I'm
Ooh,
pretty psyched.
very nice. I
Very,
still got to cook up all my stuff for the Super Bowl, cooking up some duck poppers. So I got a
oh, nice.
bunch of jalapenos. Didn't know how light jalapenos were. It's like
Yeah,
159 a pound or something. So I grabbed 9, 10 of them, threw that on the scale, and it said 0.65 pounds or something. So
yeah, yeah.
it's like,
There's
all right.
nothing in it. Yeah, it's just little seeds in that small little core. I never thought about that either, though. There's really nothing to it.
Exactly. Just got a big old pile of jalapenos now.
Yeah. All right, you ready?
Yeah, we're recording on video, so
They missed all the good stuff.
well, they got if they were watching the preview, they wouldn't have to listen to the podcast
That's true.
where we actually
Yeah.
talk about it. So
Mhm.
what's even the point there?
Exactly. All right, here we go. All right, guys, welcome to the Building Ambition podcast. I am your host, Adam, joined as always by Mr. Ben Simonak. And Ben, it is Super Bowl Sunday, and once again, the evil empire is looking for, what is it, their sixth ring, or Tom Brady specifically?
Yeah,
I know
I
he's
think
real
he's
close to
working
being
on.
like Thanos of the NFL. Like he's one click away from eliminating half of the teams.
Yeah, he's working on his second hand already.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's it. I think he's got 5 going on 6.
Okay. All right. So we teased it last week when I almost gave away and we started doing predictions, but we saved it for today. We're recording early because we both have Super Bowl festivities to go to. I literally know nothing about either team this year. I don't know who is performing at halftime. Like I've got nothing going into this because I've just been overwhelmed by all the other things going on in my life that actually matter. So I'm just going to kind of toss it over to you. I assume you know a little bit more than I do. Who's the halftime performers? How are things looking between LA and New England? And then finally, we'll get into some predictions here.
All right. So most importantly, the halftime performance is a world famous rock and roll supergroup Maroon 5. Uh, of She Will Be Loved fame.
Well, and not to cut you off because I know you're going to get on a roll here, but at least you already determined what the closing music is going to be for this episode. So that's great.
Oh, great. Perfect. But yeah, Maroon 5 is the halftime performer. Rumor is that they will be playing Sweet Victory from the SpongeBob just cartoon show. There was a famous episode where SpongeBob got to play the halftime of a big sporting event, presumably the Super Bowl, plays a sweet rock and roll song called Sweet Victory. And it's actually good. So hopefully Maroon 5 just foregoes all of their songs and plays the SpongeBob song like 3 or 4 times in a row, and we'll be squared away there.
I'm not familiar.
Okay, football fans, put your hands together for the Bikini Bottom Super Band.
Yep.
Is this it?
Yes, this is the episode from the famous meme where Patrick Starr is asking if mayonnaise is an instrument.
I think I'm gonna be sick.
Okay, everybody. Let's get this over with. 1, 2.
Wonder how much
3.
of this you can listen to before it's like flagged for something.
Oh, yeah, that's true. You might have to do some editing because you're in charge of the YouTube now.
Oh boy.
This is great.
It's amazing. It's a genuinely good
Okay.
song.
We'll let that go in the background. But anyways, so Maroon 5 is playing. Hopefully they're doing the SpongeBob song. What else do you got for me as far as statistics, who's gonna win, all that stuff?
Well, the St. Louis Rams are good. I refuse to believe that any NFL team plays in LA because none of their fans are from there. So St. Louis, New England it's the Super Bowl. It's the two best teams, best from the AFC, best from the NFC. Both teams are pretty solid offensively. I think New England's a little shaky on defense. The refs obviously are big fans of New England.
Right.
I'm going to be that guy. And who knows? I haven't paid much attention to either of these two teams, but I think New England's favored for obvious reasons. Big storyline, Gronk might retire after this game. Other than that, I don't really know what to say about it. I'm looking forward to hopefully good football. Not hoping for one of those Seattle-Denver games. Like, what was that? It was 43-8 or something.
Yeah.
I just want to see a close one.
What are the odds? I mean, what? Because Gronk's been around for a while, even though he's not really that old. What do you think? I mean, is there some legitimacy to these rumors that he's going to retire?
Yeah, he's been injured for, I think, all of the past 4 years at some point. He's sustained serious injuries. He's walking around looking like a young John Lynch with just every joint braced up. So he's, looking like he's in pretty rough shape. Hopefully it's not going to be an issue for the long term, but I think he's at least smart enough to know that probably shouldn't be doing that and getting beat up every single play or every day of your life. And he's made boatloads of money, so why not just hang out?
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, to make this a little bit more serious than we normally do, like the whole concussion thing is what would scare me being in that position. Like there's a better chance than not that he's going to have some sort of brain damage as he gets older. So, I mean, that would be a concern of mine if I was in his position. And honestly, like how much more money do you need to make, really?
Right. I have no idea how much he has. I'm sure it's over $10 million. And I think I'd be pretty okay with $10 million.
Yeah. Yeah, I could probably make do.
If anyone wants to test the validity of that claim, you can Venmo me $10 million and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. What do you think long-term wise, has there been anything said as far as Tom Brady hanging it up, or is he just going to stay around forever, or what do you think?
Yeah, he's going to play until he's about 83. I think we talked about this last week where he's just going to be Gordie Howe. Like he'll play in 12 Super Bowls over 3 different decades and do something stupid like that. Well, I guess he's a year away from getting another decade in there, so why not?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you stick it out and play in 2020, 2021?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just thinking about it and how long he's done it and how many, for me, I don't know. I don't know if I want to say this, but after so long, well, I guess this is probably why I'm not that caliber of a competitor. Like, if you've won 6, 7, 8 Super Bowls, and has he been MVP of the league? Like,
a few times, yeah.
Like, what more is there to accomplish? He's a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? And maybe there's a conversation there for us to have about that, but it would get really hard for me to motivate myself to keep doing that when you've done everything when it comes to that. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Or is that, I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I saw someone break it down online, and if you broke Tom Brady's career up into 3 different phases, you could have him be a Super Bowl contender, a Hall of Famer, based off of 3 separate phases of his career, let alone an entire career. There's like his beginning phase, he's got 2 Super Bowls. His middle phase, he's got 1 Super Bowl. His last phase, he's had 3 Super Bowl appearances, 1 win. We'll see what happens today. But you're just dragging your team along with you at that point, or it seems like it, to anyone that cares about winning Super Bowls.
Yeah. And I mean, that would get, and I've talked about this before, like if I can relate this to powerlifting, and maybe this is a good segue here. But I spent so long chasing that 700-pound bench and everything like that. And then once I got it, it's like, well, now what? Like, you know what I mean? But I
Right.
guess that's what separates the great competitors from like average competitors. And that's why he's the 1% of the 1% of the 1% that's ever played football. So, I mean, there's something to be said for that, whether you love or hate the guy. And there doesn't seem to really be an in between there when you have the Tom Brady conversation. So, but anyway, I mean, good for him. And you got to tip
Yeah.
your hat to the guy for being able to go in there and do the work and be the best in the world for so long. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
my
Absolutely. And
thought.
I think we've talked about this before too, where at a certain point, it's not that you want to be the best, but you just need to.
Yeah.
There's something deep inside where, and I think we related this back to like, the whole six pack thing, being in really good shape, being a bodybuilder where you're going maybe sub 4% body fat and you're absolutely killing yourself for it. It goes beyond the point that you want to reach these goals. It's that you actually need to psychologically, and that is your sole driving force, is that need for a championship, that need for victory, that need for your body to fit what your mind has reflected in it on the outside. It's a inherent need and not just this like, oh, I'd really like to win another Super Bowl this year.
Right.
Because if you really wanted to, it's like, well, I've got 5 of them. That's
Yeah.
probably okay.
And I wonder, and it'd be really interesting for somebody to get in the psychology of all of this, if it has anything specifically talking about Tom Brady here, going back to when he was drafted, like what, almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And he was in like the 5th or 6th round or something
I
like
was gonna
that.
say
And
he was like 212 or something. It was
yeah,
the draft
yeah.
number.
And now I mean, based on statistics and wins and stuff, he's got to have an argument there for best quarterback ever. Like, you've won how many Super Bowl? You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
to
exactly.
go from that, I don't know if that has anything to do with the motivation or what, but I mean, it'd be an interesting conversation to have. So, yeah. Anyways, all right, let's wrap up the Super Bowl talk here and get right to the meat of all of this. Who are you going with, L.A. or New England?
St. Louis.
Even if you're betting money on it, you're going to St. Louis.
I'm going St. Louis. I believe that Kurt Warner, Isaac Bruce, the greatest show on turf, they today, those guys, as old as they are, they could beat the Patriots. Greatest show on turf.
Now,
Hey, if you want to talk about rags to riches, you don't talk about Tom Brady getting drafted. You talk about
Right.
Kurt Warner getting pulled off the grocery line. Say, hey,
Yeah.
man, you got to stop filling up bags.
I
We're winning
used
Super Bowls here.
And I remember a couple years, specifically one, when Green Bay had to play the Rams. Rams were at home, and it was like Favre could never win in that stadium. Just always like just throwing long bombs to the wrong team, which I mean kind of sums up his career a little bit. But who was it Marshall Falk? Who was it?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
incredible.
Falk. I think Torrey Holt was on that team too.
Yeah. No, I'm taking New England.
Yeah, I think you have to.
Yeah. Specifically because it pisses my wife off so bad. And I know when we go to the Super Bowl party, like everybody's going to be rooting for LA. And I love an unhappy ending for everybody. And when the evil empire rises above, like we've talked about this before, but yeah, I'm going with New England. So
you're sitting there at the end of Avengers, like, Thanos might have been onto something.
This is going to kind of carry over into our next conversation about stupid shit people put on the internet. But, and sometimes with a click of the fingers and wiping out half the population. Some days, especially, if you go to Walmart that day, it doesn't seem like that bad of a idea. So I know you had a few other things that you wanted to talk about. So I will again turn it over to you.
No, let's start rolling it over to the idiots of the internet, that's one of my favorite segments on one of my favorite podcasts that isn't the Building Ambition podcast, the Time Suck podcast. Check it out if you're interested in like obscure stuff like true crime, conspiracies, but they have the idiots of the internet section, in which they just pull up comments from videos that are relevant to the discussion of the day and basically just roast people about how dumb they are. So our discussion about how dumb some people are today on our Idiots of the Internet segment is the Westside Barbell official Instagram page. And do you have easy access to that so you can quickly read it off? I'll preface this in the upper Midwest, where both Adam and I are, me to a greater extent than Adam, it was very cold. For me, wind chills reached negative 55 degrees Fahrenheit. We had a good amount of snow on Monday, and Wednesday, Thursday, it got really cold for a couple days. Today, it's beautiful. It's like 42 degrees, rainy, but it's not negative 50, so we're doing okay. And I know for you, you guys got a ton of snow too, and pretty rough weather conditions, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we got down to like negative 37, negative 40, not as bad as you, but at that point, I mean, we're having a pissing contest over who's got it worse, because it's still like, this shit will kill you.
Yeah,
you know
you're
what I
not
mean?
going outside regardless.
Right. Yeah. Legitimately concerned about my dogs, like just with them having to go outside to use the bathroom, stuff like that. But it was bad. We only had school one day last week, so yeah, it was pretty rough. But go ahead. I have this pulled up whenever you're ready.
All right. So anyway, we obviously some people had a tough time getting to the gym. They didn't want to go. People didn't want to leave their house for any reason, really, whether it's work, school, getting groceries, doing just odds and ends stuff. It's tough to get yourself out and get motivated to do anything. And some people would say reasonably, well, yeah, it's really cold. Why would you want to go outside? Why would you do anything? And the Westside Barbell page took a slightly different approach and decided to equate getting to the gym in cold weather to a, I believe, about week-long standoff in the Korean War, wherein the U.S. forces were pinned down in a reservoir, the chosen reservoir, right?
Yes, correct.
In negative 40 something degree weather. They didn't have a chance to escape because they were surrounded on all sides. They didn't have supplies flying in because it was too cold. And they had to fight their way out and survive for that week-long stretch in the middle of nowhere in Korea and survive. Here is what Westside Barbell had to say about lifting in cold weather.
So this post, and again, we're recording on Sunday. This post was from 4 days ago. You don't need a motivational. You can do it from us. But for those of you thinking of skipping the gym due to cold, remember the Marines of the frozen chosen reservoir were subjected to negative 37 degree Fahrenheit temperatures 24/7 and fighting for their lives. We truly believe you can get your ass to the gym and lift. Training on the days you don't want to is what separates the best from the rest. And then, of course, you got the nut swingers down here commenting about this. But look, so I'll chime in for a little bit. And I'm not even going to worry about treading carefully here. So the whole thing about the Westside Barbell Instagram, and I feel silly even like talking about this, but it has become so salesy, which to a point I get it. You know what I mean? Like,
right. You're selling equipment, you're trying to move product.
Yes. But to flip-flop back and forth, like from here, buy this stuff, join our club, get these keychains. It's like so watered down from what I remember in the late 90s and 2000s to now. I mean, my guess is Louis doesn't even know what Instagram is. So there's that. But it's hard for me to buy into the whole social media side of it. Like, they do put out some good information and you know, some stuff. There's resources and things you can dig into here as I'm scrolling through. But to try to sell a keychain on one page or on one post and then flip over here and compare those going to the gym that day to Marines, what, almost 70 years ago, fighting in the Forgotten War. And that whole thing just drives me bananas anyways.
Well, did you take into account how solid those Marines were? They didn't even want to be there, and they were there
Right.
anyway, Adam.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. So I mean, I take issue with all of that anyways, beast mode, going to the gym, savage this, what else is there? Grind time,
Grind, yeah.
show some grit, all this stuff. But then to compare it to actual war and things like that, where people freaking die, like legitimately, at the end of the day, I mean, we're doing squats and deadlifts and things like that. Don't get this twisted. Don't inflate yourself up so much that you're comparing it to something like that. Like, I mean, my grandpa was in Korea. You probably have relatives too. That doesn't make sense to me, and it honestly kind of bums me out, I guess. So, yeah, there's that. Anything you want to add to that?
I think we share a similar sentiment on it. That's pretty much why we brought it up. It's just preposterous to think that a workout, just a single workout, is even remotely close to being in the same conversation as a week-long standoff in Korea in the middle of a war, in which equipment was freezing. They did not have the ability to shoot their rifles because it was so cold and they were freezing. They had to get an airdrop of, I think it was just like Hershey's chocolate, because it was the most calorically dense thing that they had, and it was all they could eat that wasn't going to be frozen, that didn't need to be heated. These were guys literally freezing to death, not because they didn't want to be there. That's not why they were there. They were trying to survive in the middle of a war. Stop equating that to your deadlift day. It will never be that intense. And if it is, please let me know. I would love to interview you on why you think your deadlift day is as important as what we were doing there.
Yeah. And I would love to explain to you why you're wrong to that point. So, and I mean, I don't know. This is probably a topic for another day, but it leads me to all these other thoughts and things relating to this, relating to your workout and all these other buzzwords and shit like that did not exist pre-social media. And when I see people, and I'm thinking of specific lifters in Ohio in the APF that I run into all the time, when I see you post, and this is the most in-depth that you can get, and let me raise my hand here and say that I was that guy for a while.
Right.
But if we can't have, other conversations about family, about leadership, about philosophy and life and just serving other humans and being a better person, if all you have is your deadlifts and squats and tying that back to war and things like, I mean, I've honestly feel bad for you. You know what I mean? And it's going to be hard for me to talk to you at that point. And maybe it's because I'm, the past year or whatever, I've been exploring these other things and other thoughts and ideas of what life is and what we need to be doing here. And, I mean, powerlifting and weightlifting and things like that, it's given me opportunities that I wouldn't have otherwise, but I've capitalized on that and become and grown as a person. And I keep going back to this thought that I have when, our friend Nick Mitchell was telling us about the documentary, which is probably never going to get released because he just did another Instagram live and didn't tell us anything.
They sent out an email, actually.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
I missed it.
Oh, I read it. I'll get it to you.
Okay.
Or just scroll through there. Yeah.
Okay. But it takes me back to this thought that he brought up after viewing the documentary, that you just kind of feel bad for Louis. And again, like, I can't speak to this a whole lot because I haven't seen it, but I could understand it kind of developing that way because that's all his entire life is wrapped up into that gym, and that not even really that gym. Excuse me. His entire life is wrapped up into that chalkboard when you really stop and think about it. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like everything to him is getting records onto that board. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have kids, which that could have been a personal choice, and that's fine. But what else do we know about Louis outside of powerlifting and bands and chains and stuff like that? Not a whole lot. And I mean, if that's okay and he feels like his life is completed, then that's great. Like, I'm not going to shit on the guy. I mean, obviously, I have a lot of respect, and I hope this isn't coming off otherwise. But for
Right.
me, like, I mean, there's a lot more to life than that for me at this point. And maybe that's why there's probably somebody listening that's like, oh, you pussy, that's why you never squat 1,000. Maybe so, but I've got pretty healthy relationships with my kids and my friends and my family and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, that's really what's important to me. And if I do squat 1,000 pounds, it'll be it's not because it won't be to the detriment of other relationships and growing physically, spiritually, mentally as a person. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, I think what it comes down to is that both of us have the same idea that foundationally we do believe that fitness is a big part of our lives. You have to be healthy to really live to the fullest. But for your sole focus to be anything, and specifically in this regard, lifting heavy weights,
Mm-hmm.
for you to be solely focused on one thing and nothing else, both of us, I'm kind of putting words in your mouth, but you talked about this as well. It limits you so much to what else there is in the world to experience and to do. There's much more out there in terms of maybe service to others, service to your own self with knowledge, with experiences that are outside of that. It may take up time, it may cost money, it may cost health to solely be focused on lifting heavy. And I think this is for anything you fall into. If you're solely focused on one thing, if it's like knitting, if you're
Mm-hmm.
spending 9 hours a day knitting, not talking to anyone, not having any social relationships, not expanding your worldview, not maybe going out traveling, doing whatever, and soaking in all this world has to offer, if that makes you happy, fine, take it to the grave with you. But for most of us, we don't want to sit there and look at ourselves in the mirror in 10, 15, 20 years and say, what have I been doing all this time? I've only been focused on this. I could have done A, B, C, D, E, F, G, could have done all these other things that I didn't allow myself to do because I was focused on this sole goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that sort of focus could very well be exactly what it takes to reach that pinnacle. But we also have to look at the context of it. Okay. Are you Tom Brady, who's looking at winning his 6th Super Bowl and worth, I don't know, $200 million probably between him and his spouse?
Oh, she's got more than he does.
I did read that. Yeah. Good for him. You know what, man? The fucking guy knocks it out everywhere.
Trophy husband, Tom Brady.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, oh man, how do you not like the guy? Like, that's no. But anyways, like, look at it in that context, because when I was coming up through the ranks, like, there was 2 other guys in the world that was right around what I was bench pressing, and
Right.
nobody knew who we were. You know what I mean? Like, nobody knew who we were outside of the gym I was training at.
Yeah, I'm sure you could list off about 70 of them.
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess what I'm like, all of that focus, everything that I put into that, I mean, it destroyed relationships. My education took a backseat to it. My collegiate sports career took a backseat to my powerlifting and things like that. And I'm not saying, at this point I would change anything, because all of that molded me into what I am today. But what I will say is I am so thankful that something changed in me to where I started expanding my, I don't know, I guess horizons or whatever, and started investigating these other things. And I think specifically what changed was I met my wife. And it's like, well, she's got all of these other interests, and she's going to school and pursuing all of these things. And I'm so one dimensional, focused on something that only brings me pleasure. And really, there's not really any return on investment. As a matter of fact, it's costing me more than it's giving me. I still love it, but I'm so happy that I'm not I'm thinking of guys specifically here that I see on Facebook that are in their mid 50s that are divorced 3 times, don't talk to their kids, renting an apartment somewhere, working for menial wage, have not read a book in 15 years, that are just posting about it's max effort Saturday. And I mean, you know what I mean? It
Right.
makes me sad, because to me, like, these 50-year-old guys that didn't never found any balance or anything else to put their focus into, they're kind of like the proverbial guy that you see at the bar on wing night that's still wearing his Letterman's jacket. You know what I mean?
Right.
And now they're the guys that, because they're getting older, they're pissed off at the younger generation of lifters because they don't know their history and all this other stuff. And it just seems sad. Like, they just seem sad to me. When you find guys that can hit that elite status, but are able to balance it with family life, and maybe balance isn't the right word. Like, that's when you find like a Mark Bell, who's a millionaire now, or
Right.
insert whatever personality that's gone outside, that's used their powerlifting to springboard into something else, and they're still doing what they're passionate about, but they have all of these other things in the background. It's not just that grind or die, going to war every day. There's a lot more going on there, and then what you realize. And to kind of bring this full circle, we started by talking about Westside social media. I will say, like, it's not Louis that's posting to their Instagram.
Right.
I would lay any amount of money on that to anybody. And I don't even know, like, how much time he's spending at the gym anymore and stuff like that. But he's got a lot of other things going on to where it probably doesn't line up with some of these guys' views of what it is to, grind or die, go into war and stuff like that. So I don't know, man. I guess this is a great topic for us to kind of shed some light on the importance of not so much balance, but what else is there for you to do?
Right.
How else can you be growing, mentally, physically, spiritually? What type of investments are you putting into relationships and family life? What are you doing to make the world better? Because I think overall, that's really what our focus needs to be. Like, what are you doing for your kids that's going to make the next generation better? What are you doing? How are you investing in your spouse? You know what I mean? Like that, I'm having a hard time, like, spitting it all out here, but at the end of the day, it's life is more about the relationships and how you're leaving this world, for me, than your 2,000-pound total.
Right.
So, and that 2,000-pound total should not even be in the same conversation as the Korean War, or any war for that matter.
Right. Yeah. And as we have this conversation, I think it just reaffirms the lack of depth in the fitness industry. And I think us being technically part of the fitness industry, we do a relatively good job trying to find some depth in what we discuss, where unfortunately a lot of it now is marketing, and to a certain extent it always has been. Shout out Bernard McFadden. But there's so little depth in the industry beyond, hey, I look good. And I think you bring it up, like, what are you doing to serve others, or even just in the local area, your family? Like, let's keep it as close to home as possible. Is that priority number one? And
Mm-hmm.
Lombardi always says God, family, Green Bay Packers in that order.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to do it that way, are you following that? Is your first priority 2,000-pound bench or 2,000-pound total? Is your first
Mm-hmm.
priority 6-pack, 8-pack, whatever? Is your first priority Instagram booty? None of that really should matter if those first two aren't settled in.
Yeah.
And that's why I like coming on here every Sunday talking about something deeper within the industry, because as we peel away these layers, it just gets so thin under the surface that we're all worried about aesthetics, and that's part of the game.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's a big reason why we do it. We want to look good. Cool. But beyond that, what else can we do with this that we're not just wasting our lives in the gym? We can be doing so much more for the community, for our family, for whoever you select to spend your time towards. What are we doing to provide that depth in the industry, beyond just looking good?
Yeah. And something that I thought of right when you were laying that all out there, I don't thinking back to some of the conversations that I've heard, Louis have on podcasts or interviews or
Mm-hmm.
watching some of his DVDs and stuff. I don't know if maybe his first priority wasn't so much him being the strongest person ever, all these world records. It was finding ways to be more efficient and to spread this information. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
think that's why he's kind of had the staying power that he has had. Now on the opposite end of the spectrum, maybe not opposite, but we look at somebody like Dave Tate from Elite FTS, and he's very open and honest with his posts and what the toll was that powerlifting took on him and his family and things like that, and the things that he had to sacrifice. And I remember specifically reading one post from him about how he would, when his son was first born, he wouldn't sleep upstairs for like a whole year or whatever because he would cry during the night and he had to get his solid 8 hours of sleep and stuff like that to make his, quote unquote gains or whatever. And now it's like a regret that he has or something like that. I could be putting words into his mouth.
Right.
But he's grown past that because he was always, he was educated and he was looking, okay, this is not going to pay the bills. This personal training is not going to pay the bills. What can we be doing next? And now, he's this hub of information and coaching that he's giving away to make people better and donating to special needs causes and, Special Olympics. And he's an advocate for autism and things like that because his mindset wasn't just, or it evolved from that 1,000-pound squat to what can I do to serve people better? And again, guys like him and, Mark Bell and some of these other ones are they've had that forward thinking where it wasn't just going to war. Maybe it started out that way, but then they kind of developed and grew a little bit. And unfortunately, what I see in my area here are the guys that never got past that are holding on to that varsity Letterman's jacket and just seem grumpy and sad. So
Right.
I laugh about it, but it's sad and it's unfortunate, But again, like disclaimer here, that was me for a very long time. And thankfully I met other people that came into my life that, made me aware of shortcomings that I had and how I needed to grow. And it's still something I'm working on, but I think in the past year or two, I've done a better job than I ever have before about, growing physically, spiritually, mentally, and serving others better. So, yeah, kind of a long tangent there, just bitching about somebody's Instagram post, but I think it was a good conversation to have.
Well, hey, that's the magic of the Building Ambition podcast is we go to just do like a nice 5-minute sketch on how dumb Build It or the Westside Barbell page is, and we actually milk something good out of it, which
Yeah.
it's a conversation we should have had anyway, but at least having that opportunity for the jumping off point is good, and I think it has brought up big issues within the industry where yeah, it's a shallow industry. Yeah, it's a salesy industry. You have to have something that makes you seem tough, makes you seem fit, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
try to peel like 2 layers back from that and then see what those pages, what those people, then what?
Yeah. Yes.
Is there any depth to anything they're doing? If so, awesome.
Yeah.
Like, super cool. But there are a lot of people out there that are solely focused, and again, not to take away from what they are doing, because we have specialized ear, nose, and throat doctors, we have cardiac surgeons, we have brain surgeons. People to a certain extent need to be specialized, but you'd like to see, for the majority of us, to expand our horizons and do more than whatever that specialty is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great point. And there's a couple guys off the top of my head that are doing a really good job at it. And one of the gentlemen, his name is escaping me now, but he was on the Barbell Shrugged podcast for a while, and I'm pretty sure he passed away a few years back. But his username was like Barbell Buddha, and he was really into CrossFit, but also really into Buddhism and philosophy and Zen and all these other things. So like you had that depth to him, and he was pretty successful, doing it. And there's the Barbell Logic podcast where these guys are starting strength coaches, but they're also talking about, deeper issues that come along now being a man in 2019, and with Gillette putting commercials out and attacking all of us, things like, which to this day I still haven't seen the commercial, so I'm happy about that. But it's nice to know that there are some people that are recognizing that issue in the industry, because when you look at some of these people on Instagram and you try to imagine like what the conversation would be to have, with said fitness personality, I feel like it would be a lot of ums and likes, and when they're talking, like stopping mid conversation to check their phone and things like that. So there are some good people doing some good things out there. I don't want to make it seem like it's all negative. There are a few of us out there. So
Yeah, do we get to pause this, cut it up, take out the ums, shine that up real nice, make it look good?
no,
Yeah,
unfortunately not. They get what they get here. So that's just a way for me to extend my thinking when I have to insert those words. So it is what it is. But anyways, man, enough of harping on how shitty the industry and how stupid everybody is. You had a couple more things you wanted to get into before we got out of here today.
Well, this is still in the vein of speaking how stupid people are. Um, so, as I think we have talked about here, there's a new trend in the industry that I have seen on Instagram a lot and been very intrigued by, and that is the percussion massager. Now, if you guys haven't seen it, there are a few companies out there that do it. There's Tim Tam, there's the Theragun, there's a few others. There's like Mobility Bit, that's just going to be an attachment for an existing jigsaw. But essentially, all it is a jigsaw with a ball of some sort or some sort of attachment on the end that you just pound your muscles with repeatedly. uh, and they say it's a percussive massage. So it's supposed to release fascia, it's supposed to move lactic acid, it's supposed to do all that stuff. And I was very intrigued by these, and I kind of wanted to get my hands on one. So I've saved a lot of them on my Instagram feed, which means now I'm getting retargeted, and that's essentially the only ads I see are for percussion massagers, which is really cool, and everything, but pretty ridiculous at the same time. And I look it up, and the cheap ones are like $150 plus. If you want to just get the bit itself, that's going to run you about 40. If you want a super high end one, you can pay $600. Or if you're like me, you just make one yourself. And I looked this up. I'm like, well, shit, I got a reciprocating saw. That's pretty much a jigsaw. I can do this myself. So I look up a couple plans on YouTube, say beep boop beep, what are people doing? And I just get bam. And see that, so that bam was for the people on video,
Yeah.
which we do have. Now, well, I shouldn't promise anything, but I will attempt to upload this video on YouTube. But what I'm holding here is a 20-volt Black & Decker reciprocating saw with a golf ball super glued onto the end of a saw blade, which I have filed down. It still has the teeth in it.
Still
So
looks
it
pretty
looks,
dangerous, man.
oh, yeah, it does. It's super metal. But I just super glued a golf ball on there, and now I have
There's that.
have that obnoxious massage tool at my disposal. And the question that is asked is, okay, how does it work? Or how well does it work? And
Mhm.
I think I'm going to put it in the same category as foam rolling, lacrosse ball, any of that. The acute relief is great.
Mhm.
You will get all kinds of acute relief. It will feel good momentarily in the same way that foam rolling does. There's studies out there that will show foam rolling can increase mobility, can increase your range of motion to a certain point. It can increase, I believe the study I was reading was it will increase your squat max total due to your proprioceptors turning off or getting dulled a little bit. So you don't sense how much pressure is on your muscles and you can push
Are you
harder.
serious?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. So it's this thing where
What
like
do you
PNF
remember?
stretching.
Yeah, hang on. Uh,
Yeah.
do you remember like what the percentage was, or was this an
No, I
untrained or
I know
you?
I don't remember. It was years ago, but I know it's this
Okay.
small amount where and it might have just been like if you were experiencing DOMS that day, delayed onset muscle soreness, if you were
Yeah.
experiencing that. But I know there was an increase in the ability to lift weights. And I don't know if it was max, I don't know what it was, but there was an increase short term because what happens within the muscle is that these proprioceptors or your neurons there are being stimulated by something else. So by putting pressure on it with the foam roller, they are getting this outside stimulus. You can't tell the same stimulus that would be there from the pain, from the muscular contraction, and in very short time frames, it will increase that mobility, that lifting ability, whatever it is, to a very small amount. Now, if we're talking about foam rolling and mobility, which is a huge thing that people do, you think it's going to get you a greater range of motion if you foam roll and stretch every day. That is not the case. It will do it short term, like a PNF stretch, which I'm sure you are familiar with a PNF stretch.
Mm.
But for people at home, a PNF stretch is what's the PNF stand for? It's like a proprio neuro fascia something.
Yeah, I was hoping you weren't going to ask the last one.
Nope.
Hang on.
So as you look up the Latin here,
Proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation.
okay, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
remember that from
it's
the exam, but yeah, have not read about it since
right.
then.
Right. So the thought process is you stretch to what's essentially the end of your range of motion, and it's most commonly done in hamstring stretches. So you're on your back, you have a partner pushing your leg back, holding your straight leg down, so you'll get a hamstring stretch in the one being moved. At the end of your range of motion, you push against the person that is pushing your leg down for 10 to 15 seconds. When you let off that stretch or that contraction, they will be able to push farther than they were before. You do
Get a
this a few
greater
more times.
motion. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the short term, you get a greater range of motion. That's because you're turning off those neuromuscular sensors there. And it's going to be the same thing with the percussion massager, with the foam roller, with everything. Yes, it feels great short term. No, I don't think it's a long term solution to anything. Yes, it's pretty dangerous the way I have it. I well, I got stabbed once yesterday, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
I'm glad
And
I filed it
specifically,
down.
kind of talking about like the muscle spindles and the Golgi tendon organs and things like that. Kind of
Right.
right? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, essentially, because fascia cannot really be moved.
No.
It you everyone says you're releasing the fascia. You are not. You will not be able to compress fascia. You will not be able to stretch fascia, and that's that outer layer outside the muscle that's encasing all of your muscle fibers. Just to reiterate that, but you cannot you physically can't stretch that. You can't move it. You can, to a certain extent, shift it around and get that get those adhesions out, I suppose, but not to the point where it's like, oh, I'm going to stretch out my muscle fascia, because it's just all this fibrous mess on the outside of your muscle. So that's not going to change. But in the short term, it does feel good. I'm glad I only spent like $15 on it.
Yeah.
And I'll probably keep using it because it's
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, it feels good. It's just like anything else. It's a short-term solution, and it may help get over the hump. Like one day, if you have sore muscles, you can go before your workout and jostle them around a little bit,
Yeah.
and then they won't be
No, it
so
does feel,
sore.
yeah, it feels nice. One of my wrestlers bought the Jig Works, I think is what it's called. Just
Okay.
the in, and he's got the Black and Decker jig saw.
Mhm.
I'll tell you though, more so than anything, it's just really annoying when you're sitting in the coach's office trying to have an important conversation and you hear brrrr, like coming from the locker room. Yeah, hit me with that. Yes, that's exactly, and we're exactly. That's definitely, and then you have to yell down the hallway or shut it off because we're trying to have a conversation and we're in a block room and it just echoes all throughout the place. But yeah, it does. When I was having issues with because I'm in my mid 30s and I'm rolling around with 16, 17, 18-year-olds during wrestling practice, start to get a little sore. My neck starts to get a little stiff, and you hit that a little bit before you go out to practice, and it'll get me through the next couple of hours. But I mean, it'll come back until that muscle soreness works. You get that adaptation, and it starts to go away. So, but it's a nice little jolt to get you through the workout or get you through the training session, whatever it may be. So, not sure I would put it on a saw blade like you did, but to each their own, and that's probably how you guys do things up. Yeah, that's what you guys do in Wisconsin. So good for you, man. But no, very cool. I hope
you go out there and survive negative 55-degree weather like the brave Marines of the Frozen Chosen Reservoir. You can attach golf balls to saw blades on reciprocating saws and be just fine.
Absolutely, yes. So. All right, man. Good stuff. Looks good. I hope people will check out the video. Throw a post up about that on Instagram so everybody can see what you're doing there. So, pretty cool. But was there anything else you wanted to get to today before we get out of here?
I think those were the big two.
The Westside rant took way longer than I think we anticipated.
Oh, so yeah. We ballparked, what, like 10 minutes for that?
Yeah. Yes. But, to kind of wrap this all up, this is the first week of February here, and I don't want to keep. You know what? I might keep harping on the whole New Year, New Me thing.
Do it. And until about June.
Yeah, once everybody's fallen off, I think I'm just going to consistently bring it up throughout the entire year, just to kind of really make people feel bad about themselves for about 10 minutes every Sunday. But you had talked about some different things that you wanted to do. In 2019, I can't remember them all specifically, but has there been anything, we're through January, looking back on January, we've got 7 minutes here to fill up some time. How do you rate yourself as far as, this first month into 2019?
I think I'm like a like a 5 or a 6. Yeah, I'm not
Uh,
doing everything that I set out to do, but I'm doing more than I was in December.
Okay.
So I
All right.
think that that's a big plus. I've got 2 books that I'm working through right now, one for next week that we'll discuss, and one that's the Bernard McFadden book. So
Okay.
I've got stuff going on there. I'm learning. I'm actually working out again, like a real adult that should be working out and moving.
Yeah.
I'm back to having my meal prep on Sundays, so I'm actually eating right again. But it's tough breaking the bad habits of like being lazy and grabbing snacks and all that good stuff.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
so that balance isn't quite there yet. But again, the scales are shifted in the right direction. The winds are favorable and my sails are set. And I'm signed up for one obstacle course race in late September already. That should be relatively easy. I think it's just like a little 10K, so a 6 miler. But I'm, on the way to like actually doing things and we're
Yeah.
moving in the right direction. But it's not necessarily where it needs to be yet.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I would assume, 90% of the people that, had some goals at the end of 2018 are not where they should be yet. But because if you are and you achieved everything in 4 weeks, then you set your sights way too low. So,
Right.
no, I mean, I would just encourage everybody, keep in mind it is February now, and before you know it, it will be June. Like it goes faster and faster the older
Right.
we get. So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say you'll be sitting there like being a nice, good fella looking for a one-piece swimsuit on the 4th of July weekend. Just like, all right, what kind of wetsuit's gonna be most stylish this year, so I can hide that. I've been there before, almost.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like, what's better, a wetsuit or just a t-shirt
Keep
maybe?
the t-shirt on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be July quick.
Yeah. It's all going to happen quick. And, maybe your goal was not related to weight loss or anything physical or whatever. So, I would just say, this is a great week to kind of reflect on everything that you wrote down, the first week of January. See how you stack up, what your goals were, how are you doing as far as putting plans into place and moving towards those goals, because it goes fast. And I was kind of thinking about that last night when I was trying to kick around some ideas of what we were going to talk about today, and it's like, man, I'm for the first time probably in 35 years, I am really happy with how my January went, and I'm looking forward to see where I'm at, when June does come around, because I think it's going to be a pretty fun conversation. I think I'm going to be really tired and ready for everything to be over with, but I think I'm going to be pretty satisfied with my effort. So I hope the rest of you can say the same. I kind of, now that I've kind of gotten ahead with some of my schoolwork and I'm kind of settling into a routine here and what the schedule is going to be and stuff like that, I started looking at different things that I can be doing to kind of expand my reading and expand the kind of the subjects that I've gotten into, because I've always been kind of jealous of your Socratic knowledge and the ancient mythology that and things like that. So, but it's one of those things that I think that if I dove into that kind of those subject matters on my own, I would just get lost and give up. So I've been exploring different things that I could be doing to kind of get into maybe expanding my philosophical knowledge and things like that. So we'll talk about that at a different time or off air or something. But I hope everybody else is being diligent and moving forward, I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Yep, absolutely. And I know over the past couple of weeks, I can tell, like, even that just our brief interactions here, you've been settling out. You seem to almost have it together. At least it's, at least it's like a good patchwork. You got some duct tape hanging and like none of the duct
Yes.
tape's falling off and fluttering in the wind. All the duct tape's tight down.
Yep.
You're pretty buttoned up here, and you're like relaxed and almost enjoying yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I'm successfully treading water. So
There you go.
but I know, Nick and I talk throughout the week, and we often quote you where we say, I I don't work well under pressure. I only work under pressure. So I've just kind of accepted that as my mantra and trying to thrive in it. And I hope the rest of you can. So with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and get this wrapped up because the Super Bowl is upon us. And I know you've got some food to prep for your party. But what are things looking like this week for the mini episode?
So don't know yet. Like I said, I've got my list. I've got stuff to go through. I don't know what it will be yet. I'm thinking it'll be an old time strongman. I'll do a nice little biography of maybe Apollon. I'll talk about him, who is a French strongman that really isn't well known. He's not in the great pantheon like Louis Cyr is, like Bernard McFadden, like Sandow is. He was the second episode of that Rogue documentary series, maybe we'll call it, the second of 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So there is some information there to jump off on, and I think that he'll be an interesting character to discuss.
Yeah, definitely. I enjoyed the roller skating episode and had some fun with that. So
that one got away from me. Like I expected, I'm just gonna sit down here, talk about rollerblading for a little bit, and like, hey, here are some sports that are done on rollerblades. I didn't even get to the sports because there's like so much ridiculous garbage that went into rollerblading. First off, I didn't know it started in the 1700s. I thought like late 1800s. Cool.
I agree.
There we go.
Yes.
Then it fell off. Then it picked back up. Then it fell off. Then it picked back up. Then there were 2 federations that had to fight each other because, why wouldn't the New Jersey and New York people somehow find a way to battle the entire rest of the nation over something? I'm not going to call it dumb, but something like roller skating. I don't have the proper adjectives. Like, what are you doing, New York and New Jersey, that you're just crowning your own global champion out of your 2 states? It's like us calling the baseball World Series the World Series. Like, well, we got 2 places from Canada in, and New York's like, well, we let Jersey in, so it's pretty much the world.
Yeah, that's definitely it. Yeah. No, it was good. And I'll tell you, what, you want to find some fun stuff, search roller skating music on YouTube.
Oh, boy.
That's a lot of fun. So, yeah. But guys, with that, we're going to let you go. We went a little longer than we planned on today, but that's okay. We will be back next week. As always, make sure you subscribe in iTunes. Leave us a review. That helps out tremendously with some of the guests we're trying to get on here. And if you subscribe, then you won't miss any of Ben's fun little mini episodes where he's talking about rollerblading, 1940s marathons, pogo world championships,
free diving.
Free dive. What was the trampoline basketball one that you did?
Slam ball.
Slam ball.
Bro,
yes.
That was extreme.
Yes.
That's in the extreme sport division.
Definitely shredding the gnar on that one. So make sure you subscribe in iTunes. Leave us a review. It would help us out greatly. And enjoy your Sunday. Go Patriots. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening, guys.